I'm Martha Johnson, and I am the director of the Maier Museum of Art at Randolph College. And now you can hear me really well, right? A little too well, maybe back there? I don't know. Okay, great. We are so happy to have you with us here this evening. Oh, the music is yours, right? Okay. All right. I was like, where's it? I'm honored to introduce Professor Chris Cohen tonight. Chris is a versatile artist who has taken a circuitous route from the time he was accepted into the highly competitive studio art program at Yale University to his current position as assistant professor of art at Randolph College. Chris began teaching here as an adjunct in 2005 and joined the faculty in 2019 after completing his MFA at James Madison University. This is Chris's first solo exhibition here at the Maier, although his work was included in 2 previous faculty shows, From Source to Surface in 2018 and Teaching Begins Here in 2010. We thank Maier member Ellen Ross for her generous support of this exhibition. Chris draws, paints, makes prints and photographs. He has a wonderful technical range and is a great teacher. This I know from anecdotes former students have shared with me, and I know some of them very well. Chris is not only a skilled fine artist and teacher, he is also an accomplished graphic designer, webmaster, carpenter, and hairstylist for dead rodents. And there is a backstory. Kathy tells it so well. Talk to her after this. And it's a story that illustrates what a great dad he is, actually. He's also a musician who played in a band many of you know as the Significant Others. Anyone heard that? Yes, okay. We really need to get the band back together. As a member of this community, Chris is always stepping up and lending a hand to advance a worthy initiative. But he does so with such humility, never shining a spotlight on himself. And we are delighted to do a little bit of that this evening. I'm pretty sure I've never called anyone a Renaissance man other than Chris Cohen. And I have done it many times, actually. So, and I'm right. So won't you please join me in welcoming Professor Chris Cohen.
So that was a really beautiful introduction, and it's the kind of thing that makes me cry, and some of you may know that I'm prone to doing that anyway, so it's probably not a great thing to start with, but I'll try to keep it together. I'd like to thank the Maier, I'd like to thank Martha and everybody involved for their patience and their support and agreeing to let me go up consecutively with this amazing show that's in here now, which I think is really, doing a lot of things that I do in terms of the stuff that I'm going to talk about. And, thanks to John Spanich in particular for his patience with my last minute installation. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about the show and I'm going to talk about my work, but I'm going to start from a place that's going to sound like this is going to be a 3-hour talk, and it will not be. Okay, but when I start by talking about my childhood, don't worry. I'll get there. Right. Like my Virginia-born wife, I was introduced to a version of American history that was centered on the state where I grew up, which was Montana. An important part of that, cultural heritage in Montana was Charles Marion Charlie Russell, also known as the cowboy painter. This is him on the side over here. This designation as the cowboy painter for proud Montanans set him apart from East Coast charlatans here, like Frederick Remington. For me, though, this question of authenticity was kind of less interesting than Remington's cinematic drama and post-impressionist flair that made Russell seem kind of anachronistic and tight, though I didn't really have the language for that back then. I just knew I kind of like this better in the way that I sort of like the movies better than the real thing. I remember being most interested in what was in the background of Russell's work, which was the landscape of the Big Sky State. This is about the same time that I was introduced to a movement of artists that Russell missed out on during his own lifetime, which were the Impressionists. In the Impressionists, I found things that I loved where I lived that were foregrounded. Light, changing nature, being out in the world. There's a painting of mine that used to hang in my aunt's living room in Montana that is pretty much equivalent to this. But I found this one on Google by Googling Western Montana hay bale oil painting. So that tells you some things. At the time, I didn't entirely appreciate what Monet was doing on the left here, other than it sort of reminded me of some things. I was still under the impression, pardon the pun, that technique and representation were the pinnacle of artistic achievement, which is why artists like John Singer Sargent seemed like the next natural step in my use of as education. Sargent had the drawing skills of Remington, the light of the Impressionists, the economy and the confidence of mark making of abstract expressionists, another movement that I had no clue about at the time. Western art, in the cowboy sense of Western art, landed kind of here, and it's kind of been there ever since. My art also stayed here for a long time in terms of my sort of Sargent-esque treatment of things, even though my subject matter started to change. That subject matter started to change in 1990 when I went off to school on the East Coast, and though I didn't know it then, I would never end up back in Montana. I pulled a Remington. This wasn't and still isn't a particularly unusual thing for Montanans to do, actually. There was something in it, nonetheless, that made me feel like a fish out of water. Plus, I found myself in the South, in a small city, and in a state where heritage and local history were centered, kind of like where I came from, but now I was the inauthentic interloper who wasn't from here. So as some of you know, I got my MFA 20-some years after I graduated from college, and for the most part, my artwork didn't change that much in that sort of Sargent-esque post-impressionistic way. Even after I was introduced to a whole other world of possibilities through my education. I was still doing that Sargent-esque thing, but as I said, my subject matter had changed. I had swapped, excuse me, I had swapped the big skies of Montana for the cozy green interiority of Virginia. I had a day job and 3 kids to boot, and for much of that time, I turned my skills inward. Sometimes pretty literally. But for all those years, I was still mostly concentrating on painting technique and only sort of unconsciously including things that I was feeling about and rather than what I was depicting. Even so, this represented a subtle shift towards the kind of painting that was more purposely about things rather than, or about things rather than how the work is made. And it turned out to be a valuable source of ideas that would take me beyond the imitative spot that I was in for all of these years. I went back to school in 2016 to get my MFA, and after much hemming and hawing all those years, I was back in the studio full-time, in a studio environment full-time. Those of you who have been to grad school know it is the subject matter boot camp. It's made to make you turn your assumptions inside out and spread them all over the table in front of you and rearrange them and explain them. But it's also fun and scintillating. But I think that's hard to know unless you're someone unless you've done something else for 20 plus years. That was definitely true of my colleagues at school who were all in their 20s. Unless, of course, you're someone like my wife, Amy, who knew what she was going to do and that it was going to include grad school when she was 12. How's that for a transition? Well, this was 2016, and though none of us knew it then, stuff was going to get even weirder. Anyway, at the beginning of grad school, I was still pretty much the same artist I had been all those years, technically and thematically, but my kids were nearly grown, and the rest of the world was having a bit of a meltdown. I was learning about new art, and there was dominant conversation going on in the world, and my life in my life, that conversation was occupying a lot of space in my mind. I'll come back to this slide in a little bit. I discovered an artist during this time named Kerry James Marshall. Excuse me. I actually saw the painting on the left here in person when I was in college, and I was immediately struck by his use of black as a skin tone, and black as the color black as well. I saw an interview in which Marshall admitted to the controversy over the emphatic blackness of his figures. He put it in terms of trying to reclaim the idea of blackness as a way of highlighting black people's cultural invisibility in the United States, but also, the cultural invisibility in a white setting. This was one of Marshall's first images in this vein. It's called the Portrait of the Artist as a Shadow of His Former Self. Excuse me. Seeing this image was a revelatory moment for me. The power of this image lies in its dependence on people to engage with it rather than to run fleeing from it. Marshall is throwing down a challenge to all of his viewers to converse with him, to put themselves in his shoes. Is this image racist? Is it exploitative? Is it accusing anyone of anything? Yes. Yes, and? What he is definitely doing, though, is making you reconsider the idea of blackness, regardless of your position or experience on the subject. So, that was a conversation I felt like I needed to have, too, but maybe not about blackness. Like Marshall, who was talking to his audience about their blackness, I wanted to talk to an audience about their whiteness. I turned back to my interior world, in this case, photos of me as a child, and I added these white masks to the portraits. I'm using or trying to use the color white in a similarly expressionist but not accurately representational way that Marshall uses it. Namely, to try to point out the problem of using the color white as an identifier or as one's identity. The masks in these portraits are white, the color, whereas the skin is not white, the skin is white, but not white, the color. I'm pointing out the thinly veiled aspect of whiteness, it's used to cover over perceived impurity, to homogenize, to simplify the codification of skin colors, none of which are the color white, or the color black for that matter. The use of the mask shows figures in my work hiding behind an identity that they cannot live up to. One that is so fragile and unrealistic, excuse me, fragile and unrealistic that it can be undone by one drop of color. Another artist I discovered in this time had a large influence on me, Gerhard Richter. He is a German-born painter whose work spans a wide range of technical and subject matter. Primary in most of his work is the subject of memory and perception. He's actually West German, East German. So he lived there until the wall fell, and then he emigrated. He is, in a way, a history painter in that he uses imagery from his own past, including family photos and clippings from newspapers and still lifes and whatnot. But he uses paint to point out the frailty and the inaccuracy of memory. In particular, he blurs and de-resolves the images in a way that feels like the images are being forgotten, almost as you look at them. I began to experiment with this idea in my own work. In this work, which is in the show in the next room, I was also beginning to do photography at this time, and it occurred to me that this sort of thing could apply directly to the source material of photography, which Richter was using, which Richter was referencing in oil paint. So these are all oil paintings, but the idea being that the technique of blurriness that Richter was using from the source material could be applied to an oil painting, basically, which he also ended up doing. Some combination of these experiments and a desire to move beyond my representational figurative tendencies led me towards a period of grisaille paintings that were not based on observational painting. Talking about it in the previous slide, where I'm using elements of that sort of blurring and motion to obscure the understanding of what you're looking at. Excuse me. Perhaps it was a desire that most of us have these days to move forward or to move on. But I think this period of grisaille paintings was something of a palate cleanser for me. I mean, it has obvious relationship to some of the stuff that Richter was doing, but it was also an opportunity for me to not be looking at something that when I was painting it, not doing observational painting, not worrying about technique quite so much, and to just play, actually. It was an experiment in different ways of making and generating ideas, but it was also an attempt to get beyond the pandemic movement or moment, beyond feeling polemical or beyond controversy somehow. There was, though, something slightly impersonal about this genre of painting for me. It was kind of, I don't know, it was play, but it was divorced from feeling in a way, even though it was expressive. Conversation, the attempt at connection outside of a difficult subject matter, the comfort, the inner space. So I go back to this image because it has some direct relationships to two of the other work, or one of the other works that's in the show right now, which is this one. This one. This painting's in the next room. For me, it was kind of a form of time travel between here and here. It's in the same setting. A couple of decades apart, and I feel as though this one personally gives me the sense of almost as if I'd just woken up after a couple of decades worth of sleep, and I don't exactly know where I'm at. And there are some, obviously some time-specific things and some things that are anachronistic and out of time, and this figure that is not really clearly defined. The title of this particular piece is That You, Pop? So there's a sense of being out of place. There's a sense of confusion about time and setting, and which is condensed in that particular part of the image there. Also in the room are these paintings, which came earlier on than the rest of the paintings in the show, but I've included this trio for the same reasons that I showed you the old image of my living room. It's a precursor to the other presidential portrait that I did, which is on the opposite wall from it. This is a pretty good example of the ways in which I return to themes and techniques and how they morph as I respond to things in a new context or a new moment. This actually started pretty much right after the last faculty meeting that we had with Brad. There was it was online in Zoom because we were smack in the middle of the pandemic. And I was originally thinking about it as a pretty staid portrait of them. I was taken by the fact that I kept screenshotting throughout the course of the meeting, and he had this set of expressions on his face that were mostly contemplative, mostly that sort of just highlighted the fact that we weren't together, and it was hard to communicate, and it was hard to understand and hear each other, and so that's where it began. It was quiet. The resulting thing was pretty quiet, which is a thing that I do. But as it sort of went along, I felt like the green screen thing that he actually had on during the meeting was not highlighting this aspect of communication problems that I felt like in the way that I felt like I needed it to. So I started going back to this idea of sort of things interrupting the figure in the painting, and in the same way that there's blurring happening, in terms of what we remember, as far as history is concerned. There were these ways in which some of you have seen before that Zoom backgrounds can glitch, and suddenly your right ear is gone, or your shirt, which is slightly green, is now a beach somewhere or something. That was pretty much where I landed with this one, but I don't think I would have gotten there if I hadn't been in the places I was before. So I'm going to wrap it up there, but I'm going to say that all artists, I think, are standing on the shoulders of the artists that came before us. We all borrow from our predecessors, or as Picasso once admitted, we steal. Way out here in the 21st century, long after painting has been declared dead multiple times, where there is supposedly nothing new under the sun in studio art, I press on. Slowly, as I rehash things, as I try different things, I become my own reference. I become the artist who I am imitating. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. I'm using this for the first time ever. Can you tell? This is going right into that phone. Well, that's what they tell me. So, but I'm supposed to use it and ask you if there are questions, and then this will have to be right close to your mouth. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Yes. So can you hold that?
I don't think it's coming out.
Hello? Oh, can you hear me? Come here. I just want to comment on this. It's just he seems so lost in this.
Mhm.
You know, like yeah, the communications were terrible, but he just seems lost. Right? Is it going through? Can you hear
It
me?
doesn't, well, it doesn't, use them both.
Both of them. Okay. No, just the just my comment, my first impressions of this when I saw it when your opening was just that he just seems lost. You know, not just lost in contemplation, but lost in this situation when it took us all by surprise. And I'm not sure if that's what you wanted to capture, but it comes screaming through to me. But
I think the interpretation's still open for me, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, as I was writing this talk, I realized various things about the work that I'm, and relationships and connections between things. So I mean, the notion that you come up with an idea and then you just perform it I don't think that's the way it works for anybody. But there's other artists in the room who are nodding, so I guess I feel good about that.
Get a glimpse into your process and what inspires you. It's another layer to knowing something about you, and I really appreciate that. Can you tell us about the stories in the image before this, the Is That You Pops? There, that one. The use of the greens especially, and the reds, and the green on the doorway. Is there a story behind that? Is there some other significance behind that that you can share with us?
Well, this was you may notice in me talking about even just the painting part of things that I do, and Martha alluded to the fact that I do lots of other things, including that little multimedia thing that you saw at the beginning that was on the screen, which is photo-based, web-based thing. But this was pretty much directly after I started doing all of the grisaille stuff, and I was like, I need some color. And I need it now. And so I went out and I bought all these fluorescent kitty paints, and I did all the underpainting. Like, this whole thing has either that loud yellow or I don't think you can see it anywhere, but there's like a safety orange under everything. So that was part of it. It was also kind of, I had been thinking about the Fauvists a bit, who do a lot of this kind of interior stuff, who do a lot of stuff with high color, a lot of things that are really still. And I was just trying to shift gears psychologically, probably more than anything, when I made that decision. I vacillate a lot about what it is that my art is necessarily about at any given time, but I think I really did mean it when I was talking about this general idea and feeling about wanting to move on. I feel that in my bones right now, and I'm hoping that happens for all of us. Mm-hmm.
Kathy?
Oh, yeah.
Kathy. Oh, do you mind?
There's a couple.
Okay, I'm terrible at these things. I think you sound really good. Oh, do it sound good? Okay. We were wondering very basically the camera and the technique for that. We thought of Hulda, but some of my friends here are photographers, and we're just contemplating it. They're beautiful, they're stunning.
Thank you.
They're light-filled. I see what you're saying. I think the rotunda is something about the center will not hold.
That's the title, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the Robert Lee statue I imagine in Richmond.
That one, that's actually Charlottesville. Yeah. But not that it actually, yeah, really. I think that one was called Hate Portal, if I remember correctly.
So your thought process and what was your pitch?
So there's another street photographer that I met in graduate school. His name is Argus Paul, and he was photographing Korean street protests at the time, and a lot of his work had kind of multiple exposure and motion stuff going on inside of it, but there was this really painterly effect that doing this kind of thing, moving the camera basically with a long exposure. So that's the basic technique. There's an expressionistic aspect to it that I felt like I could add meaning to things with. So that's what I was shooting for. There's this sort of zoom blur, which is kind of, the center coming out, gives you this exploding sense. There's this rotational blur thing happening in the center here, so some things are in position and in focus, and everything radiating out from it becomes less and less so.
Sort of lost and it's found, and it's sort of a tunnel and a hole, and sort of futuristic, and I think they're very powerful.
Thank you.
Excited to see them.
Thank you. These were some other ones that were more in focus. They're kind of like the stuff that was in the slideshow that you were seeing at the beginning, and those were all contemporary things. Like I went to a couple of Civil War reenactments in the valley, in the Shenandoah Valley, and there were I visited the museum, the Frontier Culture Museum, thank you, which has also has reenactors. And I was shooting them in ways using old-timey kind of filters and things like tilt shift and stuff that if you weren't looking carefully and you didn't see the sippy cups or the Slurpees or whatever, or the four-wheeler off in the corner, you might think it was a historical photograph. And that was kind of the point of that series. So.
Anybody else in the line?
Jim wants to go back here.
Yes, hi.
Hey, Jim. Thank you.
This is a bit of a rhetorical question because I know you, but I can understand sometimes how people could misconstrue when you compared Kerry James Marshall's blackness and then your white mask. In this kind of political environment, I can see where people might read that different than I know you intended, because I know you. So if you could elaborate a little bit more on the white mask,
Yeah.
I think it would be help clarify.
Pretty sure that Kerry James Marshall was accused of painting blackface with this particular image. I was literally accused of doing whiteface here. So the thing about Kerry James Marshall is that he took that chance. He put these images out there in a way, in an environment when he knew who his audience was, and he knew that they weren't necessarily going to listen. In the same way that if I had seen more interviews with him, I probably would have known that the audience that I was talking to was probably not going to listen to it, because it's easy to dismiss. But I think if there's any power in any of the imagery, it's in the possibility that there will be a conversation. And I've had lots of conversations with, even with plenty of people who understand the difference between white and whiteness. And I don't know. I don't know if it's going to, if it will go beyond that. I'm not painting this kind of thing anymore. And I think part of why I've just back burner maybe, or maybe, who knows, is because of my own doubt about whether it's pushing people away or not. So it's not subtle, but sometimes art isn't, or doesn't need to be, or shouldn't be. I don't know. It's difficult. I'm putting myself in there. I'm putting my own experience, my own knowledge. I'm implicating myself. So yeah, I have to have the confidence that Carrie James Marshall had to, know that I'm doing it for the right reasons, I guess.
Thank you for a beautiful talk and show. And I've known you a long time. I knew when your children were born. So even the very early one, I think it's Spencer in the bathtub, because they're floating around. And the intimacy of your family and your friends, I think has always, I'm just always so impressed by it. And when you talked about your abstract grisaille paintings, which I think are wonderful, but that you wanted more emotion. And I think it's a very, it's taking a big bite to try to bring in an emotion and carry it through the paint. And I'm particularly struck by the two diptychs, the one early one where the children or somebody's watching the TV, kind of tucked behind the couch.
Yep.
And that beautiful way, the grisaille in this painting, or I think of Rothko with some of those blocks of color. And I know you were at Yale, so you were aware of Vuillard. And there is something of that intimacy and patterning that Vuillard does. And then to jump to your one that's over in the next gallery. I think it's astonishing. It's just, I love the cowboy on the TV. It's like he's in the room with us. But again, the blocks of color, I think the thing that struck me the most was the figure. Because I know your children are all in college or in jobs now. And it seemed, not all of them, Leo's still around. That figure in the doorway could be like your title, is that you, Pop?
Yeah.
That a child is in the house and hears somebody coming in. It could also be the children. And then, so from the cowboy of your growing up years to your role as a father, to that distressed flag, the kind of distress that we're in right now. I just think it's remarkable what you've done.
Thank you.
And my question, now that I'm talking, is do you feel this is the way that you're going to work for a while?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. I have other plans that are related to this sort of interiority thing. Yeah. It's just going to get more colorful and thicker and splashier and.
And I won't press you on some of the other things you've been talking about, but I noticed for the first time, because you had them up next to each other, that one of the things that is new in these paintings. I mean, you work in so many mediums and media, and you haven't talked about your prints this summer, but also how you've brought photography into your printmaking and all of that. I just realized, though, with the phone in this one and the green screen in the Brad pictures, that in your paintings now you've also brought in this new era of another medium that is ever present. Like have you thought about that? Was that conscious, or is it simply your reaction to the age we're in, or another part of the reaction?
For presence is part of it, I think. Also just the I don't know about you during the pandemic, but that those two screens were 80% of my life, maybe. So yeah, I think it is probably more of a reaction to the time and the places that we get information from, but also kind of doing oil paintings of digital media is also, I think, just hilarious to me.
But you are there with two things in that one, and the Brad pictures, and in both of them, in both sets of paintings, you are showing us not only them as a piece of the scenery, like the Kleenex box or something, but also as the ways in which it bends our lives. So definitely thinking about that with the green screen and the distortions of the green screen, but we're seeing it here too. I mean, I think it's a piece of both of these paintings is that distortion. So
thank you.
I have thought about those Brad pictures so much because I was literally on hundreds of Zoom calls with Brad during the pandemic. That's not an exaggeration. And most of you know that we met every morning, the COVID team, every single morning for probably close to 2 years.
Wow.
And that's in addition to other meetings we had on Zoom. And so I was thinking when I saw them, and I kind of thought about them and looking at them again tonight, I think you captured 3 expressions of his that I certainly know very, very well and saw many, many times, particularly on Zoom, more so than in real life. And the way I think Trent is right, it is a lost book. But Brad was terribly pensive, even before the pandemic. And so his pensiveness is really accelerated, I think, in this work. And for me, presidents of colleges during that era were confronted with something that none of them thought they would ever be confronted with, and none of us who were special assistants and provosts knew what the hell to do. And so I used to say, well, whatever we do, we won't be wrong because, we have to do something. There's no, real chart here to follow. So I think in many ways, you captured him, you captured a period of time with the college, you capture that technology where people fade in and out of Zoom and all of that. But I also think you captured a lot about the era of college presidents, because I would venture to guess that there were many college presidents who had someone painted them. If we looked at 25, paintings by people of this kind of thing, I think this would be very representative of what people were going through during that time. And so I think when COVID art, there's a show about COVID art, this certainly has a place in that. And I don't have a question. I just wanted to
thank you.
Comment and ramble a little bit, but thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Okay. Do you want to do it loudly?
I can project, but not from around here. Don't know who this gentleman is. Looking at it fresh, I looked at him and I said, well, he's being blacked out by some green stuff. There's green stuff that's covering up something that was there. He seems to be avoiding looking at me. That's what I thought. I mean, I think he looks thoughtful and all of that, but I don't see a direct gaze. And I thought that was fascinating. That's all. But I love the paintings.
I mean,
in and of themselves.
I had many images of him to choose from.
Sure.
And I probably did choose the more pensive
Mhm.
version of things,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
But also, I think I probably had a sense that these were the kinds of things, these were the kinds of poses that I remembered about him.
Right. Right. I mean, as standalone, not having a connection with the individual or where you got these images, I find them fascinating. And I find, I mean, as you say, I mean, I could look at them next week and see something else. You know, right now I'm seeing someone who really has to think about somebody who, I don't want to really address this directly, that kind of thing. And also that guy looks like Ali Belchi, who I really love.
I'll hold this one.
I've noticed, Chris, in these paintings, and in the other works too, and you didn't mention this tonight, I don't think, in this way at least, that a lot of these images are of authority figures. I took in the colorful painting, the colorful interior, the cowboy there, to me like John Wayne. I thought, that's John Wayne. It's at least John Wayne's hat. You know, and then the flag to me is a kind of authority. And then the sort of obscured portraits of the line of the three, those are authority figures. And I don't know, I just kept seeing the statues that Robert E. Lee or whoever it is, again, another authority figure kind of image. And it seemed to me that something was going on. That began to be what was holding the thing together for me thematically, the whole thing in a sense. So I don't think you've addressed that. I wonder if you make a quick comment on it. Maybe it was all accidental, coincidental, but maybe something else.
So, I will admit that I have some daddy issues. Yeah, that's in there. That's definitely in there. I don't know if it's so much about authority as it is about masculinity, maybe, and the sort of the kind of man that the maleness that gets handed down, how we remember it. You know, whether we can lose it or change it. A lot of that is in the work that I'm doing, but it's not as. I don't think I've really. I come up with a lot of symbolism, you know, in my work, and I think that allows me to sort of leave it open-ended a bit. But the notion of authority is hierarchy. It's more masculinity. It's more, you know, the kinds of things that I thought about for years when I was working in IT and dreaming about going back to graduate school and what my responsibilities were and whether or not it was time yet, and, you know, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
Sure.